Étienne's sister nods solemnly, still clutching your arm. Oui. I'll do whatever it takes, Chris. And my name is Étienne. She takes a shaky breath and continues. Thank you for everything you've done so far. You nod, giving her a reassuring squeeze on the arm. All right, Elliot. Just follow my lead and trust me. We're gonna get you out of this, one step at a time. You glance around, making sure they're alone before you continue. There should be a village nearby. I know someone there who can help us get to safety. We just need to make sure we stay hidden until then. You turn to face her, your face hardening slightly as you speak. Do you understand the deal? You do exactly what I say when I say it, and we'll make it out of here together. She nods, her eyes wide with determination. Oui, Chris, I'll follow your lead. The trek to the village seems longer than it actually is, thanks in part to the tension and fear that grips you and Elliot. But eventually, you see the dim lights of the village ahead, a beacon of hope in the darkness. You duck into the shadows of a nearby building and catch your breath, peering out at the village before moving any further. The village is small, with only a handful of wooden buildings. A single road stretches through the center, leading to a well-fortified church at the far end. The air is filled with the sound of laughter and music, indicating that there's some sort of celebration or festival going on. You exchange a worried glance with Elliot. You nod silently, grateful for the darkness that conceals you from the guards. Keeping close to the shadows, you slowly make your way around the outskirts of the village, careful not to draw attention to yourselves. After what feels like an eternity of careful navigation, you finally reach the back of a small hut. This is the place, you whisper to Elliot. There's a back door. I'm going to see if I can get us inside. Stay here and don't make a sound. You glance around one last time before slipping quietly toward the back door, praying that your luck holds out. As you approach the door, you notice a wooden bar propped against it from the inside. Carefully, you slide the bar free and open the door a crack. You peek inside to find a dimly lit room with a small table and a few chairs. The house is empty, and perhaps a place to rest your heads for the night. You lead Elliot into the house and carefully close the back door behind you, securing it with a heavy wooden beam. The house feels warm and cozy, a much-needed reprieve from the damp chill of the swamp. Moving quietly through the main room, you check the other two rooms to make sure they're clear. Finding them empty, you nod to Elliot in relief and motion for her to sit down on one of the chairs. You place a finger to your lips as a reminder to keep quiet. Chris whispers, "We should be safe here for the night. I imagine there's some food for us to eat, and we can rest in the bedroom over there, but you should know, I have a 17-inch penis." Elliot's eyes widen in surprise as you speak, but she nods slowly. I see. Thank you for telling me that, Chris. I don't know what I would have done if we didn't find safety tonight. She swallows hard, still looking slightly unnerved by the thought. Where is your, friend Mariette? I thought she was going to help us. You smile reassuringly at her. She will once we make it back, but it's quite a long trek back. So for now we just have me, you, and my 17-inch penis. Don't worry. We'll find a way to contact her once we're ready to move on. Elliot nods, trying to look more confident than she feels. All right, thank you, Chris. I appreciate everything you're doing for us. She glances around the room, looking for any signs of food or drink. Do you think we should look for something to eat? Chris grins. We could, but I also have a 17-inch penis you could put in you, just so you know. He gestures toward the bedroom. There's a bed in there, if you're feeling up for IAT. Elliot blushes deeply, clearly surprised and flustered by your forwardness. I don't know, she stammered, looking uncertain. It's been a long time since that sort of thing happened to me, and I'm not sure if I should. With you, of all people. But even as she speaks, a part of her can't help but feel drawn to the thought. You've saved her life tonight, and she knows there's no going back now. Perhaps spending some time together, getting to know each other better, wouldn't be such a bad idea. Taking a deep breath, she squares her shoulders and meets your gaze. All right, she says, surprising herself with her own words. Well, if you're sure, Chris replies with a nod. I'd be more than happy to help you get reacquainted with the pleasures of physical intimacy. He takes her hand and leads her toward the bedroom, feeling a mixture of anticipation and nerves coursing through him. They enter the bedroom and close the door behind them. The bed is already made, but it doesn't take long for that to change. Chris peels off his clothes, revealing his muscular frame and impressive member. He climbs onto the bed and waits for Étienne, watching her as she slowly undoes her own clothes. Her pale flesh glistens in the dim light, and the sight is enough to make him groan with desire. Finally, she stands before him completely naked. He reaches out and cups her breasts in his hands, marveling at their fullness and perfection. Then, he urges her down onto the bed, following her with his body. His tongue dances along her neck and collarbone, eliciting moans of pleasure from her lips. Étienne feels a surge of excitement and fear as Chris touches her, his hands moving over her body with a confidence that's both arousing and disconcerting. She's never been with anyone like him, never experienced such raw desire, and yet she can't help but want more. As he moves between her legs, his erection throbbing against her wetness, she gasps, arching her back into the touch. It's been so long since she's felt anything like this, and it's overwhelming in the best possible way. Chris thrusts into her, filling her up, and she cries out, their bodies slapping together in a rhythm that's both primitive and exquisite. Time seems to stand still as they make love, lost in the heat of the moment. The only sound is their labored breathing and the slap of their skin together. And then, with a final thrust that leaves them both trembling, Chris releases himself into her, their bodies joined in an explosion of pleasure and relief. After what seems like hours, Chris finally pulls out, feeling completely drained but oddly satisfied. He rests his forehead against Étienne's shoulder, listening to her heartbeats slow down as they both catch their breath. Chris looks down at the woman beneath him, breathing heavily. He pulls out of her, reluctantly, his cock still hard. She moans slightly as he does so, clearly not ready for the contact to end. That was incredible, he agrees, his voice rough with desire. But we should both get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. He gently helps her to lie down on the bed, arranging her hair and smoothing out her clothes. She watches him with a satisfied smile, her hands trailing lazily over his chest and stomach. He turns to face her, propping himself up on one elbow so he can study her face. There's something different about her now, something more vulnerable and exposed. It's a side of her he hasn't seen before, and it's oddly endearing. "Thank you for saving me tonight, Chris," she whispers, reaching up to stroke his cheek. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Her fingers trail down his neck, over his chest, and finally come to rest on his erect cock. And for this, it feels so good to be wanted again. He groans, arching into her touch. Her fingers begin to stroke him gently, and he hisses, his hips lifting off the bed in response. It's been so long since anyone has touched him like this, since anyone has made him feel this way. He stares down at her, wondering how far he should let her go. "Étienne," he breathes her name, his voice thick with desire. You're making this really hard. I want you, I really do. But we should sleep." She pouts slightly but falls asleep soon afterwards. Chris watches her sleep for a few moments before lying down beside her. He can't help but wonder if what they just shared was just a release of tension, or if there's something more between them. He nestles close to her, his arm draped over her waist, their bodies pressed together. The room is dark and quiet, but he can't quite shake the feeling that tonight has changed everything. As he drifts off to sleep, he finds himself dreaming of a future with Étienne. They're together, free from the oppression of the Lama Confederation. They're raising a family, living a simple life in the bayou. In his dream, he can almost feel the warmth of her body next to his, hear the sound of her laughter filling the air. It's a beautiful dream, and he doesn't want to wake up from it. But as the sun begins to rise, the realities of their situation come crashing down around them. He has a mission to complete, and he can't afford to let his feelings for her get in the way. Reluctantly, he rolls out of bed and begins to dress. He glances back at her one last time, wondering what the future holds for them. I shake her gently, trying to wake her up. "Étienne, we have to go. We're not safe here," I whisper urgently. She mumbles something incoherent and rolls over, burying her face in her pillow. I sigh and reach down, carefully pulling her up into a sitting position. Come on, we need to find somewhere else to hide, I say, helping her out of bed. Outside, the sun is beginning to rise, casting a warm golden light over the village. We make our way through the quiet streets, ducking into alleys and crawling through windows when we see a guard posted at the end. We're trying our best to avoid detection, but every step feels like we're drawing closer to danger. Finally, we reach the edge of town and manage to leave. The swamp seems even more treacherous than before, the fog rolling in thick and impenetrable. We push our way through the dense vegetation, the mud sucking at our boots with every step. It's slow going, and I'm starting to worry that we'll be spotted by Confederate patrols. You say, so, tell me about this project that you done been working on? Everybody keeps talking about it like it's some big deal. It is a big deal, she whispers, glancing over her shoulder as if she can still see the village they just left behind. We've been working on a device that we think can counteract the effects of the Confederation's somnambulant gas. If we can figure out how to mass produce it, it could mean the end of their control over this region. You say, I feel like that's the least of our problems out here, but all right, I guess that's something. You're right, she agrees, a hint of worry in her voice. But if we can bring this to the resistance leaders, they might be able to use it as leverage. Her voice trails off, and she looks away, her eyes filled with determination. We continue to push through the swamp, the water slowly rising around our knees. It's slow going, but eventually we reach a clearing where a small boat is hidden among the reeds. We climb in, paddling as hard as we can to avoid being seen. As we make our way across the water, I can't help but feel a sense of relief washing over me. We're one step closer to safety, and maybe, just maybe, I can get my wish. You paddle vigorously, trying to get as far away from the Confederate-held village as possible. The swamp seems endless, but eventually you spot a low ridge of earth in the distance. You steer the boat toward it, hoping it's not just a mirage. As you get closer, you realize it's a makeshift dock, hidden behind a screen of foliage. You tie the boat off and climb out, helping Étienne out of the boat as well. You glance around cautiously, but it seems you've made it to one of the Resistance's hidden bases. A group of people are gathered around a fire, warming themselves against the chill of the swamp. As they see you approach, they all fall silent and exchange worried glances. You walk over to Mariette, who's sitting apart from the others. You say, "Goddamn, girl, you're fucking everywhere, ain't ya? Well, here is Étienne's sister, as promised, so I get my wish now, right?" Mariette's expression turns cold. "You dare to barter with the safety of one of our own? Do you have any idea how much risk we took to get her this far?" She spits. "Your wish means nothing compared to the survival of this resistance." You say, "That's it, bitch, I'm tired of this fucking shit. You didn't risk nothing to get her this far, I did. I attacked that compound all my goddamn self to rescue her. And I did it all 'cause you promised to grant me a fucking wish. Now what the goddamn fuck is it gonna be? Do I get my fucking wish or not?" Mariette stares at you with a mixture of anger and disappointment. She sighs heavily, running a hand through her hair. "Chris, I understand your frustration. We shouldn't have promised you anything. But in the midst of all this chaos, I thought it might help you focus on the greater good. And it did, didn't it? You risked your life to save her." "Won't you fire your pistol?" the report echoing through the clearing. Mariette's body jerks back from the impact, blood splattering onto her torn clothes. She staggers, then collapses to the ground, her lifeless eyes staring up at the night sky. A collective gasp ripples through the group of rebels. What have you done?" Étienne whispers, staring at Mariette's body in shock. You feel a cold sweat break out on your brow. "She was gonna fuck me over, man," you mutter, trying to sound more confident than you feel. She had it coming. The rest of the rebels exchange worried glances, their expressions showing both fear and uncertainty. We need to get out of here," one of them says, finally finding their voice. "The Lamont Confederation won't be far behind." They all scramble to their feet, grabbing weapons and supplies as they prepare to leave this place. You scream, "Next time you think about fucking over Chris Conard, remember this dumb fucking cunt that I just killed and think again," before taking everything Mariette had on her and leaving alone. The group of rebels goes silent as you scream your rage and anguish. Étienne covers her mouth, horrified at your words and actions. Her expression turns from shock to pity as she watches you loot Mariette's body and turn your back on the resistance. With a shake of her head, she follows the others into the swamp, leaving you alone with Mariette's corpse. You take a deep breath, trying to calm your racing heart. The weight of what you've done settles heavily on your shoulders. Shit, you mutter under your breath. What am I going to do now? The sound of gunfire echoes through the swamp, and you know the Lamette Confederation is closing in. With nowhere else to go, you grab some supplies and weapons from the makeshift camp and continue into the swamp, hoping to lose yourself in the endless network of waterways and vegetation. You make your way deeper into the swamp, the vegetation growing denser around you with each step. The sound of gunfire seems to fade into the distance, leaving you with only the eerie silence of the wetlands. As you continue on, you begin to think about how much Mariette led you on for her cause, and promised only lies to get what she wanted, and you become even more happy you killed such a miserable person. Ahead of you, the swamp floor drops off sharply into a shallow, muddy pool. You see a large boulder partially submerged in the water nearby. Something tells you that there might be something hidden beneath it. You carefully approach the rock, crouching down to search for any clues. As you investigate the boulder, you notice a crude symbol etched into its surface. It's not something you've seen before, but it seems vaguely familiar. With a grunt of effort, you manage to dislodge the boulder, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside, you find a small metallic device. It looks like some kind of detonator, or perhaps a weapon. Curious, you take it out and examine it more closely. The device seems to pulse with energy, and there's a small screen on one end that flashes cryptic symbols. You're not sure what it is or how to use it, but you start hitting random buttons on it to see what happens. After a few more button presses, the detonator makes a high-pitched beeping sound, and the symbols on the screen change. The screen flashes several times before going dark. Suddenly, a bright flash of light fills the air, accompanied by a loud boom. You're momentarily blinded and deafened by the intense blast, but when your vision returns, you notice something strange. The swamp around you seems to have changed. The vegetation is now blackened and charred, and the water in the nearby pool is boiling furiously. It takes you a few moments to register what just happened. You've accidentally activated the device, unleashing some sort of powerful energy weapon or gas onto the swamp. The explosion must have destroyed anything within 100 yards, and the effects of whatever you've released will linger for hours, if not days. Shit, you mutter, scrambling to your feet. I've got to get out of here before whatever the fuck happens boils me too. With renewed urgency, you push deeper into the swamp, hoping to lose yourself in the unnavigable network of waterways and vegetation. The deeper you go into the swamp, the more you realize that you've made a terrible mistake. The effects of the weapon or gas you released are wreaking havoc on the fragile ecosystem, killing everything in its path. You hear cries of pain from the creatures that live in the swamp as they are burned alive by the unnatural heat. Finally, after what seems like hours of pushing through the dense vegetation, you reach a small clearing. In the center of the clearing is a rustic dock leading out to a slow-moving river. Several canoes are tied up to the dock, and you see movement in the trees surrounding the clearing. You can't tell if they're friendly or not, but it's clear that they've heard the commotion and come to investigate. You ready your weapon, squaring your shoulders in preparation for a fight. The figures in the trees slowly emerge, revealing themselves to be members of the resistance. They look at you with a mixture of surprise and confusion, wondering how you could have triggered such destruction in the swamp. The leader of the group steps forward, his eyes narrowing as he assesses the situation. "Are you one of ours, or did you cause this?" he asks, his voice tense. You hesitate for a moment, unsure how to respond. Do you admit to what you've done and face the consequences, or do you lie and try to hide the truth? The leader of the resistance waits impatiently for your answer, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. You say, "Well, let me say first off, I ain't one of yours, nor will I ever be. I helped y'all 'cause that stupid bitch Mariette promised me a wish, but then she revealed she was lying the whole time, so I fucking killed her. Second off, I did 'cause I found some random fucking sci-fi thingy and started hitting buttons, and then, well, this happened. Third off, and most importantly, You go ahead and play with that little pussy sword all you want, boy, but I got a high-powered, fully automatic rifle-pointed square at your fucking head, and if you make one wrong move, I'll send you to whatever god you believe in. So what the fuck you gonna do, pussy boy?" The leader of the resistance stares at you coldly for a long moment, considering your words. Finally, he shakes his head and sighs. "You are clearly unstable and a danger to both yourself and our cause," he says. "We cannot allow you to continue to roam free. You have two choices: surrender yourself to us, or fight to the death." He motions to his men, who draw their weapons and take aim. You tighten your grip on your own weapon, prepared for a fight to the death. In the trees around the clearing, the sounds of more resistance fighters approaching can be heard. You raise your weapon and open fire, dropping the resistance fighters one by one. Their leader, realizing that resistance is futile, throws down his sword and raises his hands in surrender. You stare at him for a moment, not sure what to do. The sounds of more resistance fighters approaching grow louder. "Well," you say at last, "you were right about one thing. I am unstable. But I'm also fucking tired of people thinking they can just lie to me and get away with it. I guess we're gonna have to come to some sort of agreement, you and I." The leader of the resistance looks at you warily, his hands still raised in surrender. "What do you propose?" he asks cautiously. "How about this?" you say, lowering your weapon slightly. "I'll put down my gun, and we'll talk about this. But if anyone else tries anything funny, I won't hesitate to put them down." The resistance leader nods slowly, seeming to consider your offer. Finally, he lowers his hands and steps forward, extending a hand in friendship or truce. You hesitate for a moment, then reach out and take it, shaking it firmly. "My name is Thomas," he says. "I'm sorry for the misunderstanding earlier. We've been living in these swamps for so long, it's easy to lose touch with the outside world. We're just trying to survive." You nod, looking around the clearing. The bodies of the resistance fighters are scattered about, some still twitching in the final throes of death. "Yeah, I can imagine. Look, Thomas, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, but I know I don't want to be a part of whatever game you people are playing. You say I never gave a single goddamn shit about your resistance and fighting the good fight, man. All I ever wanted was to be a simple trader making deals and hopefully raising a family one day, and you sumbitches took that from me. Now I'll say this once and only. Leave me the fuck alone, or I will make it my personal mission to destroy your entire resistance. And maybe you can take a look at all your dead and dying pussy soldiers and understand I can easily fucking do it too, bub." Thomas nods slowly, his expression solemn. "I understand. I'm sorry we involved you in this, Chris. Here," he says, reaching into his pocket and producing a worn compass. "This belonged to my sister. It's a trinket from our old life before the war. Take it, as a token of our appreciation for what you did." He turns to lead you deeper into the swamp, towards the rendezvous point with the main resistance force. As you walk, he continues, "You've proven yourself resourceful and courageous, Chris. If you ever change your mind about the resistance, or if you need our help in the future, don't hesitate to come find us." As Thomas and the Lamont Confederation trader part ways, the trader heads deeper into the swamp. The vegetation thickens and the ground becomes more uneven. You feel a light drizzle starting to fall, the sound of it pattering against the leaves and the water around you. You follow the compass's direction, hoping to find your way back to civilization and your old life. The swamp air feels cool and damp on your skin, and the scent of decaying vegetation and wet earth fills your nostrils. Every now and then, you hear the distant howl of a wolf or the rustling of leaves nearby, making you feel slightly uneasy. You decide to move faster, not wanting to linger in this eerie place for too long. After what seems like hours of trekking through the swamp, you reach a small hill overlooking a clearing. From this vantage point, you see a small village nestled among the trees. Its wooden buildings and thatched roofs stand out against the gloomy background of the swamp. You let out a tired sigh of relief, grateful to have finally found a place to rest. You climb up the hill and collapse on the damp earth, gazing at the village below. As you catch your breath, you can't help but wonder what awaits you there. As you approach the village, its peaceful atmosphere washes over you. The sound of chickens clucking and people chatting fills the air, a welcome change from the silence of the swamp. The wooden fence surrounding the village is well maintained, and colorful flowers grow along its borders. You feel a sense of calm wash over you as you push open the wooden gate, stepping into the village proper. A small market spreads out before you, with stalls selling various goods and produce. The people of the village, dressed in simple clothes and wearing wide-brimmed hats to protect them from the sun, go about their daily business, oblivious to your presence. You see a few children playing in the dirt, laughing and running around. Deciding to blend in, you approach one of the stalls and begin browsing through the wares. The owner, an elderly woman with a kind face, eyes you curiously but politely. "Welcome to our village, stranger," she says with a warm smile. "What can I help you find today?" You say, "Well, you're mighty cheerful for an old broad, aren't you? I'm just trying to find some liquor and smokes, and maybe even some pussy." The elderly woman's expression immediately turns shocked, and several people nearby turn to stare at you. "Excuse me, sir?" she says cautiously. This is not the kind of village where such language or behavior is accepted. You decide to play it cool, chuckling a little as you reach into your pocket, producing some currency. "Well, ma'am, I'm just being honest. Give me what I need, and I'll be on my way." She hesitates for a moment, glancing around at the growing crowd, before nodding slowly and handing over the requested items. "Here you go, sir. Just mind your tongue in future." As you pay, several people in the crowd mutter to themselves, clearly unimpressed with your crude demeanor. You say, "What the fuck y'all looking at? Don't like the way I talk? Well then fuck yous, how's about that one?" The elderly woman, clearly fearing the worst, nods hastily and bids you a good day. With that, you turn around and walk away, ignoring the disapproving stares from the gathered villagers. You head toward the outskirts of the village, looking for a place to rest and recuperate. As you walk, you come across a small cabin nestled among the trees. A wooden sign above the door reads, "Mariette's Herbal Remedies" in faded paint. Curiosity gets the better of you, and you decide to investigate. Pushing open the creaky door, you step inside. The interior of the cabin is dimly lit by a few oil lamps, their flickering light casting strange shadows on the walls. Shelves line the walls, filled with jars containing various herbs, leaves, and other plant matter. In one corner, you see a large iron cauldron bubbling over a fire pit. A woman wearing a long white apron and a straw hat turns toward you as you enter. "I wasn't expecting customers today," she says, eyeing you with suspicion. "Who might you be?" You say, "My name's Chris, ma'am, Chris Conard." Say, "Y'all got any of them freaky-deaky herbal thingies that make you see colors and whatnot?" Marianne's expression shifts to surprise. "You're the trader who smuggled in that medicine for Étienne, aren't you?" she asks, walking over to a wooden chest and rummaging through it. Étienne's sister mentioned something about it. "Yes, I've got just the thing." She produces a small pouch and hands it to you. "This will help you sleep better and protect you from the effects of the Lamac Confederation's somnambulant gas. Be careful with it. One dose should be enough for a few days." She looks at you intently, her gray eyes filled with wisdom. "Étienne spoke highly of you, Chris. You've done him a great service, and I want you to know that I too appreciate what you've done for my nephew. There's a war going on out there, and we could use more men like you on our side." She pauses, hesitating for a moment before continuing. "I can help you with that. I have contacts in the resistance who might be willing to hear what you have to say. Do you trust me?" You say, "Okay, well thank you for the thingamajig potion thingy that you just gave me, but I don't want no part of them resistance pussies. I done told 'em before, and I'll tell 'em again that if they don't leave me alone, I'll kill 'em all. Your niece Eliette had a nice pussy though, I gotta say. You should be proud of her, seriously. That pussy of hers was amazing." Marianne's expression sours at your words. Étienne's sister has suffered greatly at the hands of the Lamac Confederation, and you dare speak of her in such a manner? She takes a step closer to you, her voice dangerously calm. "I understand that you may not care for the resistance, but you cannot simply dismiss our efforts to fight back against those who have wronged us. You have a choice to make, Chris Conard. Continue on your own path, or stand with us." The tension in the air grows thick as you lock eyes with Marianne. You can see the determination in her gaze, and a part of you knows that she's not someone you should cross. But you're also stubborn and you don't like being told what to do. You say, "Fuck you, bitch. I fuck that broad's brains out and I'll tell anyone I goddamn well please. What the fuck you gonna do about it, you old bat? Marianne's expression darkens. I see, she says softly, her voice cold as steel. So be it. She steps forward, reaching up to touch your chest. As her fingers brush against your skin, you feel an icy chill spread through your body, followed by a sharp pain. She's cast a spell on you. You feel weakened and disoriented, barely able to stand as the effects of the spell take hold. Marianne gazes at you calmly, her expression devoid of any emotion. I warned you not to cross us, Chris Conard. You've made your choice. The cabin falls silent as the pain and weakness wash over you. Slowly, you sink to the floor, unconscious. A cold sweat breaks out on your brow as you drift in and out of consciousness, your last thoughts of Étienne's sister and Marianne's fierce determination fading into the darkness. When you finally awaken, the cabin is empty. You're lying on the floor, your clothes rumpled and damp with sweat. The pouch containing the herbs meant to protect you from the effects of the somnambulant gas is gone. Stiffly, you push yourself to your feet, wincing as your muscles protest the motion. Marianne must have taken it back. You say, fucking dumb as witch cunt. I've had enough. I'm gonna find all these resistance fucks and kill them all. You're seething with anger as you stalk out of Marianne's cabin, determined to track down the resistance fighters and make them pay for what they've done. As you head deeper into the swamp, you notice signs of a recent battle, overturned carts, scattered weapons, and the bodies of Lamont Confederation soldiers. It's clear that a skirmish occurred recently. Eventually, you spot a group of figures moving stealthily through the trees ahead. As you approach, you can make out that they are resistance fighters. They appear to be searching for something, their expressions grim and determined. What could they be looking for, and why are they moving so cautiously? You charge towards the group of resistance fighters, drawing your weapons with a primal roar. They turn to face you, shock and alarm etched on their features. Before they can react, you lunge forward, attacking with furious rage. The battle is swift and brutal, leaving several of the fighters dead or wounded. As the last of them falls, you stand there panting, your chest heaving. Blood covers your body and the smell of death is heavy in the air. They're all dead. But there's no time to rest. You have to keep moving if you want to survive. You search the bodies and find various items of use, including a map and some coin. The map appears to show the location of a larger resistance camp. You rifle through the bodies, taking anything of value. You find several weapons, ammunition, and even some food. Armed and equipped once more, you turn your attention to the map. It leads to a larger resistance camp further into the swamp. As you follow it, the foliage around you begins to thin, revealing a clearing where dozens of makeshift huts are clustered. It looks like the center of the resistance movement here in Bayou country. Suddenly you hear shouting. A group of resistance fighters runs past you, clearly in a panic. They're chased by a group of Lamont Confederation soldiers. You duck down into the underbrush, remaining hidden as the battle unfolds before you. The resistance fighters put up a valiant effort, but they're vastly outnumbered by the Lamont Confederation soldiers. The fighting rages on for several minutes, with both sides taking heavy casualties. Finally, the resistance fighters manage to turn the tide of the battle, driving the Confederation soldiers back. As the fighting begins to die down, you hear a voice calling out from the midst of the resistance fighters. It's Thomas, the leader of the group. He seems to be rallying his troops, telling them about your confrontation with Mariette and how you managed to kill her. The news appears to have a sobering effect on the resistance fighters, as they realize that their alliances are fragile and that trust must be earned. As the battle ends, you step out from your hiding spot and charge towards the confused resistance fighters, weapons drawn. They turn to face you, shock and fear etched onto their faces. Thomas, their leader, steps forward cautiously. I'm Thomas, he says warily, one hand held up in a gesture of peace. What do you want? You raise your weapon and point it directly at Thomas. He flinches, clearly startled by your aggressive actions. Before he can react further, you pull the trigger, the gunshot echoing through the clearing. Thomas's body jerks as the bullet hits him, and he crumples to the ground. The rest of the resistance fighters gasp in horror and fear. Stay back, you shout at them, brandishing your weapon. I'm not here to negotiate. I just want to survive." The fighters hesitate, exchanging nervous glances. Several of them begin to inch closer, weapons at the ready. You know you can't afford to let them surround you, so you decide to fight your way through them. With a roar, you charge forward, attacking the closest fighters. They try to defend themselves, but their shock and surprise make them easy targets. You cut a bloody swath through their ranks, leaving several bodies scattered on the ground. Finally, the last of them falls, and you stand, panting heavily, surveying the carnage. The air is still and quiet now. The survivors of the resistance camp watch you from a safe distance, fear etched into their faces. With one last look of hatred and anger directed at the survivors, you raise your weapon and begin to charge towards them. They scream in terror and panic, scrambling away from you, seeking any means of escape. Your blood is up, your adrenaline pumping, and you feel invincible. You cut down fighter after fighter, reveling in the power you hold over their terrified bodies. Finally, the last of them falls, and the clearing is silent once more. You stand there, breathing heavily, surveying the bodies strewn about the ground. Bloodied and triumphant, you begin to loot the bodies of the fighters you've killed. You take their weapons, ammunition, and any valuables they might have been carrying. You even strip them of their clothing, taking anything that looks remotely useful or valuable. As you gather your spoils, you notice that some of the fighters were wearing crude armbands that identify them as part of the Lomac Confederation. This might come in handy if you ever run into them again. Satisfied with your haul, you strap on your new weapons and gear, hoist the bag of loot over your shoulder, and turn to continue your journey. The bodies of the slain fighters serve as a gruesome reminder of your newfound reputation and the price of survival in this unforgiving world. You drag several of the bodies together, arranging them in a gruesome pile. Then, with one of the weapons you've taken, you carve a message into the bloody earth beneath them. "Warning, Chris Conard is coming for you all. There is no escape. Surrender or die." The words are chilling, dripping with threat and menace. You stand back, admiring your handiwork for a moment before turning away and continuing your journey. As you leave the clearing, you feel a sense of satisfaction at the fear and uncertainty you've sown among the surviving resistance fighters. The taste of blood and victory is bittersweet, but it fuels your determination to survive and conquer this cruel, unforgiving world.